Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another chat for Pink Turns Purple. We are not calling them interviews now. They are chats because we are having real conversation. Today we're going to be joined by Thrive Her, Miss Lady Blue herself. But before we get into the conversation with her, I want to remind you that this telesummit is completely free. So feel free to hit the forward to a friend button. And of course, encourage your friends to register at bit.ly/Pink Turns Purple. Once again, it is completely free. We just want to know who's getting the information. And of course, if you like, we'd love and encourage you to put some dollars behind our mission to create change in the African American community, especially those affected by domestic violence. So support us with a t-shirt purchase, a book t-shirt combo, or a straight donation. But that's enough housekeeping, so let's get right to it. Let me let you know about Miss Lady Blue. Arlene R. Major, aka Lady Blue, was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She completed high school in Seaside, California, before attending Jacksonville State University in Alabama for a short period of time. Raised in the military, she would join the Army National Guard to help serve her country. She also has management and medical administration experience as well. A divorced mother of 4, she found that times of trial offered the best ground for inspiration. She went on to complete her medical certification as a medical administrator and also began training to become a 911 operator. No stranger to the stage, Lady Blue grew up in performing arts and has performed in several musicals around California and has also sang with a local band in California, New Mexico, as well as singing in the church choir. Writing has always been a part of her life. English was a favorite subject, and her teachers helped her to realize she had a gift. After going through a rough time in her life, Arlene decided to return to writing and let it reach and touch those who needed an uplift in their spirit. She started writing blogs for World Prayer in 2010, shortly after her father passed away, and has been going strong ever since. Intimate partner violence also is a topic that she takes very seriously. As a survivor, she found strength to share her story with others and is founder and host of 50 Shades of Blue Baltimore, Stories of Domestic Violence Survival. This event showcases other survivors, local vendors, and a host of friends community from Baltimore and surrounding areas. Lady Blue hosts this event annually and has had radio appearances with Must Be the Music, Charm City Direct Radio Show, For the Love of My People, Inspired by Purpose, and Melanie's Matters. She has been featured in the November 2015 issue of The Belief magazine and the April 2015 issue of Trendsetters, the online magazine business edition in Atlanta, Pink Pearl Proverbs 31 Woman Newsletter, and Rep Your Grind blog e-magazine. Besides the website, Lady Blue also has an inspirational page on Facebook appropriately titled Joy Does Come in the Morning. Without further ado, let me introduce and let me hand it over to Miss Lady Blue herself. Say hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. How is everybody? I'm glad to be here.
Glad to be here. We are glad to have you. So without any more chatting, I want you to share with us your domestic violence, or intimate, as it's now being called, intimate partner violence story. And then we're going to have a little bit of chat after you share us your story.
Okay. I'm just going to update a little bit on my profile. I was divorced for over 15, almost 20 years, but I got married again in 2016. So I'm happily married for the last 2 years. Recently, in the last year, became a grandmother. So he will be 9 months old in November 1st. So I'm excited for my little boom boom. His name is Amir. I love him to death. And, there's more magazines and more things that are going on and more writing. And we just completed our 4th annual domestic violence awareness event, which I'm very thrilled about. And we can talk about after I share my story a little bit. But my story goes back quite a ways. It started pretty much young adulthood, getting into my early 20s. You meet the guy, he makes you feel good, he makes you giggle, things like that, makes you feel special. And then next thing you know, he's telling you, if you love me, you'll do this. If you love me, you'll do that. Oh, you don't love me enough because you haven't gotten this. So naturally, because I wanted to be loved and I liked this guy, I started doing these things. I started buying things. I started anything he requested, I started doing, only to find out that he was taking what I was giving or what I was buying, and he was taking it back and returning it to get the money and go take care of somebody else. So this went off and on, where I would break up with him and he would come, and he would get extreme. He would serenade me below my window. He would, kind of like from the movie with John Cusack when he would hold the radio up. He had teddy bears and all these things. And, he would get upset because I was not at the time ready for sex. Did not want it. I did not lose my virginity for quite some time. And one day I had gone to his house and I saw him walking down the street with another girl. So I assumed this was the girl that he was, taking my money and spending my money on. So I didn't confront him at the time. What I did is I just followed. He didn't know it was me because I was in a different car. I followed, and next thing you know, he started beating on this girl. I said, no, this is not going to happen. So I took it upon myself to get out of the car and use myself as a barrier between him and this girl. Well, that was a mistake because it turned around on me. And next thing I can tell you, all I saw was white light. He had me on the ground. He was beating me onto the ground while all my friends were standing around. This girl was long gone by this time. I never knew who she was. I never saw her again. By the time somebody pulled him off of me, because it seemed like everything was in slow motion, by the time everybody pulled him off of me, all I could think of was to get in the car and go. Well, he jumped on the hood of my car. So my friend who was with me, God love her, it took her 10 minutes, but she had me slow down enough to let him off the hood of my car and pull into the hospital emergency room. I almost had my jaw broken and my orbital socket dislocated. So I hid from my dad. I was living with my dad at the time. I hid from my dad for about 2 weeks. I made every excuse in the book. And the reason I hid from my dad is because my dad was a police officer. And I didn't want my dad to know. I didn't want my dad to get extreme. But my girlfriend and her mom were just like, you need to tell your father. You need to tell your father. So I show up at my dad's house after about 2.5 weeks. And my dad's like, how's everything going? You've been gone for a long time. My dad was never very pushy. He always gave you room enough to talk. And he said, you're in my house, take the sunglasses off. And when I took the sunglasses off, he nearly broke the dining room table. So he knew who this gentleman was. He didn't do anything rash because karma did its own thing. This young man had ended up in another relationship with a girl that I was in the National Guard with. I never heard from her again after I found out that she was pregnant, because she kept coming to guard duty, heavy makeup, especially over in this area, which means he was beating her. And one day before the last weekend trip before I last saw her, she said he had beat her with the phone, the phone receiver. She was pregnant at the time. I never heard from her again. Later on that month, my dad came to me and said, I just came from court and he was put in jail for domestic abuse. And my dad sat there in the courtroom and watched him get sentenced, watched him turn around and look him square in his eye and tell him that he deserved what he got. Whatever happened to him after that, have no clue. So moving forward, I moved from Albuquerque to the East Coast and met my first husband, who, God rest his soul, he passed away a couple of years ago, and wanted the life with my husband. But my husband was too much into the drugs, and he was cheating right in front of me. He would bring his mistress to the house. That was the first thing that was wrong, and I was too much acceptance of that. And it got to the point where there were things like the things that people disavow now, marital rape, when you don't want it, but they want it. We got in an argument one day where he tried to put a pillow over my face to stop me from screaming. Things like that. There were so many things that went on to that I separated and I left. We got divorced, and I didn't give myself time enough to heal before jumping into another relationship. This individual, was worse than the last one. Very controlling, upset if I talked to anybody else, upset if I spoke to somebody before they spoke to me, wanted everybody to know I belonged to him, wanted everybody, wanted me to do certain things, always telling me if I didn't know how to please a man, then I wasn't woman enough. If I didn't know what a man wanted, that, what was the purpose of me being in a relationship? Upset if I didn't come to bed in lingerie every night. Separated me from my family and my kids. My kids were living with us, and he would make it a point that the kids could not sit at the dining room table. They had to sit at this little kiddie picnic table that he purchased. He wouldn't allow me to cook in the kitchen because he said only his mom knew how to cook. I didn't know how to cook. Just these different things. There was always these degrading things that went on. So I kept separating from him and going back. We got engaged, going back. The first time we got engaged and I got upset, we had just finished being intimate. And I had stated that I wasn't feeling very well, and he wasn't happy with that. He said, well, come to the store with me. Well, I was getting ready to put clothes on. He said, no, just put your coat on. And I'm like, it's freezing outside. He grabbed me by the back of my neck, said, just put the coat on. I put the coat on, went outside to the car. It was winter, and we didn't go to the store. He literally drove me about 2 miles from the house, told me to get out and stand on the corner like the prostitute I was, and he would be back maybe in a couple of hours. About an hour went by. I'm freezing. I'm standing there in barely anything in a coat that doesn't really cover a lot and trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. And he comes back after an hour and asks me if I learned my lesson. I didn't say anything. I went back to the house cold, and then we continued to argue, and he told me he wanted his engagement ring. Well, my hands were swollen from the cold, so I was trying to pull the engagement ring off. So he pulls out a Bowie knife and tells me I have exactly 5 minutes, so it's either the ring or my finger in the ring. And in that time, he had hit me with the door of the closet. There's a few other things. The police showed up, and of course, as normal, he's charming to the police while eyeing me and telling me not to say anything. That scenario pretty much explains itself. We separated and left a couple times. I've emptied the house, but I ended up having to deal with stalking from him for a year when we finally broke up. He's constantly finding me and asking me, who was I losing weight for? Why did I do these certain things? You belong to me. And to this day, this individual still thinks I belong to him, married or not. I dealt with stalking. I dealt with having to almost lose my job, leaving work early to run and get my kids. And I had to beg the daycare provider to, if my kids were the last one, to please close the door, lock the door, turn the lights off, and take the kids in the back. Because he'll show up here to pick up the kids, and these are not his kids to pick up. He did this for about 3 months straight, trying to do this. And always asking me how it is that I always got the kids. I had a secret knock with the daycare provider, but after a while, the daycare provider couldn't handle that anymore and just said, you're going to have to find another daycare. I had to change my entire routine. I went through homelessness. I went through going into the hospital with no one to watch my kids, dealing with family that didn't want to have anything to do with it or was blaming me, telling me that I did something wrong in order to put myself in this situation. And it just seemed that every time I got with somebody, it just turned out to be this kind of scenario over and over again. So most of my domestic relationships were mostly verbal. One time was physical, or 2 times were physical. But the last relationship, I just wanted to sleep. So I was taking a migraine medicine, which made you kind of drowsy. And I took the entire bottle. And at the time, I didn't consider it a suicidal attempt. I just wanted to sleep. I figured if I slept, he couldn't bother me. Nothing would go wrong, all of these things. It was a suicide attempt. I had looked at the situation years later, and I looked at the fact that I had not bathed for almost 2.5 weeks, really didn't eat. Nights where the only way I could get a drink of water or anything from him is he would make me crawl around the house in order to do these things. So my, I had to think of my own life preservation if I didn't get water, if I didn't get food, things of this nature. And the straw that broke the camel's back was when I went to Jenny Craig because I had wanted to lose weight. I was desperate to lose weight. And he went with me because he wouldn't let me fat, isn't she? And the counselor agreed with him. And at that moment, I refused to give any of my money to Jenny Craig because I looked at the counselor saying, why would you do that? You're supposed to be supportive of me. You're not supposed to be agreeing with somebody else about my weight and my size. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. So that broke that relationship off. And I stayed by myself for a long period of time just because I was trying to find who I was, but I was too busy playing a victim at the same time of trying to figure out who I was. So I wanted everybody to agree with my hurt, but I didn't want to take responsibility for my part of being in it, because we do have a responsibility of being in it. We don't always see the signs, or if we see the signs, we ignore the signs. And along comes my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, who has been my friend for the last 20 plus years. He just looked at me one day when we had went out and he said, look, you got to decide. You're either going to be a victim or you're going to have victory over the situation. I can't walk around being the brunt end of everything that went wrong with somebody else. I'm here for you, but I'm not him, basically is what he was telling me. So we had broken up for a period of time. And during that time, it was me, God, the floor, standing outside, hollering, the rain, writing, everything I could think of to try and go through what I need to go through. I went to therapy. I went to counseling. I went to the pastor. I went through all of that. And when I went to the pastor is the one that gave me the first exercise that helped me on the road to forgiveness. And what that was is, and I put this in my workbook that we're working on right now, but it was, I stepped on the road to forgiveness, and he said, write down everybody that you think has hurt you, has helped you, hasn't listened to you, all of these things. So I wrote that list down, and he said, here, I want you to write them a letter. I was like, why am I writing these people a letter? He says, write them a letter. It doesn't matter if they're going to get it or if they're not going to get it. I want you to write a letter. So I wrote these letters. He says, I want you to write letters, start off in love, tell them how much you love them, how much they mean to you, that, what part they've played in your life. He says, then I want you to take the next paragraph and go into the nitty gritty. I want you to tell them how they made you feel when you were upset about this, what they did. He says, I want you to get all of that off your chest. He says, and I want you to close the letter in love and tell them that not only do I forgive you, but I forgive myself for not realizing that I was putting myself through my own turmoil while trying to get you to feel my same pain. While you were out there living your life, I was keeping myself prisoner. So this letter helped me, and I wrote about a good 9, 10, 11 letters. And he said, now you can attempt to give this to them, and then you may not be able to give them to them. He said, but as soon as you close that letter, that's the end of it. And sure enough, I wrote these letters. I didn't go back. I didn't rewrite anything. I didn't add anything. I didn't do anything like that. I literally held a burning ceremony and I burned all those letters, and I have not looked back since. And it has literally just been a forward motion since then, with the start of 50 Shades of Blue, with becoming the person that I am, the radio show, the inspirational pages, the speaking engagements, all of these things, writing my own book, the workbooks, the people that I've met. It's just all become this wonderful spiral of just complete beauty. That's the only word I can think of for it. It's just been a phenomenal trip since then. And I reflect often on what has happened to me. I forgive daily. Positive affirmations are a big part of my day. And it's just important to me that people understand and know that you have the ability to heal. You have the ability to come out of this situation. We can talk to you till we're blue in the face and then give you advice and give you places to go and tell you this counselor wants to speak to you and all these other things, which I do. But it's up to the person that's receiving them to want to step out of that situation. If they choose not to step out of that situation, you have to realize that you've done what you can do. But you also want to let them know that I'm still here. If you need to step out, if you don't have a plan, if you want to formulate a plan, if you need to leave some paperwork somewhere, things like that. So I give people these exercises. I give people these things. I talk to people. My event allows people to open up and share their story, which happened again this year. People opened up, people shared their stories. I learned something new about every one of my speakers that was there that I did not know beforehand, which is the beauty of my event. We had more youth at this event. We were really able to step out and step up to the younger crowd and let them know that your no means no. Your body is yours. You do not have to give it over to anybody to feel loved, to feel wanted, to feel complete. If you're not complete within yourself, that means you're not pouring into yourself. You're not giving yourself what you deserve in order to live this life. God has not put you here to be somebody else's plaything or toy or boxing glove or whatever the case may be. You are meant for a purpose and for a life that is meant to be lived, not just existed. And that's the thing. People need to stop existing because too many people are existing. They're not living. They're not in their purpose. They're not getting up and saying, you know what? Looking in that mirror and saying, I'm going to do this today. Me and God got this. Devil, you ain't got nothing to do with what happens today. And continuing forward. So those are the things that to me are important, that have made me who I am today. There are other little tidbits of my story that I can tell, which are just little things like the narcissism and the gaslighting and the constant degrading and, how I felt at the time of my suicide attempt and all these other things. But the thing that I take from all of that is that those things, I'm not my past, but my past is what formed me into who I am today. And to me, that's more important than anything I can say and any piece of advice that I can give to anybody. You have got to learn to pour into yourself. That's the biggest thing that I can tell anybody that listens to my story or reads my books or whatever the case may be. You've got to learn to love you, because if you don't learn how to deal with this, ain't nobody else gonna learn how to deal with it.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to back up a little bit and go back to what you were saying about the pastor when he had to write those letters. The thing that kept coming to my mind is closure. And I think so many times we stay in a place of victim because we're looking for closure. Like somebody needs to validate what we've gone through and then give us the closure that we feel we need to move forward. So many times. And, and this is just period, even outside of domestic violence, you know, a lot of times we're like, they need to pay for what they've done. You know, like, he cheated on me. The world needs to know. Like, we're looking for this validation and this closure. And I think that exercise is so amazing because it gave you that closure. It gave you that release of, you did this to me. You know what I mean? But then it gave you also the closure of, but it's over now. I'm letting it go. I'm not holding on to it no more. And I just think that is so important. Like, that's a big, important piece that because so many times we feel like we can't get the closure without someone else, you know? They've got to admit it, or they've got to acknowledge, or whatever. And you can get the closure all by yourself because, like you said, you have the power.
Right.
I wanna ask you, when you were spending all that time alone, and you were in that victim space, but you were trying to figure out who you were at the same time. Now looking back, why is that such a contradicting battle?
Because you mentioned a couple of good things. You know, if we put both of those together, one, I was too busy giving away my power instead of holding on to my power. Being contradictory. Wow, how do you put that? Because in order to survive, you've got to acknowledge the victim. You've got to acknowledge the victim. Why do you acknowledge the victim when most of us would rather forget it and show society this well made up, this kind of, I got it all together kind of thing? The best way I could put this is, if you look at, I'm not going to say that this person is going through this, but let's look at, let's say Tyra Banks. Okay. Girlfriend is put together. Face is always beat. Girlfriend's got the clothes on, got the walk, the figure, all this going on. But for all we know, she may have a turmoil on the inside that none of us have any idea what's going on. But to the world, she's got it all together. So in that victim mode, what happens is that we want society to see us as right so much that we will continue to hold on to that victim mentality, because that brings us the most comfort, that brings us the most satisfaction, that brings us the most what we feel is power. Because if I can get one person to agree with me and join me in this fight to make this person miserable, then I've done what I needed to do. Where at the same time, you're not looking at how much you're tearing yourself down, how much you're giving power to this thing. And that's what it is. It's this thing that has controlled you for so long. Not realizing this person out here is living their life. You know the song that's out now, I'm living my best life, okay? This person's out there doing them, and you're busy trying to do them in your space. Why? They're not there. They have nothing to do with you. They have nothing to do with what's going on in your life, but you're still making them a part of your daily life. And that's the thing about victimhood. We remain stuck where we were hurt the most. And we're scared of that thing called freedom, that moving forward part that allows us to be the human being we're supposed to be. We become scared of ourselves. We become scared of what we can accomplish and what we could accomplish. And that's what keeps us in victim mode, because we live out of fear.
Exactly. Like you hit it on all points. And I totally agree. And when you were talking, you said, that the one abuser that you had in your past, like, he still believes to this day that you're his, you belong to him, but you are clearly living your life like he don't even exist. Like, he is not a factor. And that's that freedom that you speak of, and I tell people all the time, we have no control over what they think, what they say, what they want to do, what they do. We have no control over it. The only thing we have control over is this right here. So I'm not going to live my life based on what I think you're going to do, what I think you're going to say, where I think you're going to be, how I think you're going to move. Because even, I bet you, if he saw you today and you were so unbothered with his presence, it would just take the wind out of his, you know, his whatever you want to call he has.
Yeah, he would wonder why I'm not giving him any attention, why I'm not speaking. I can say hi. I'm not that, you know, callous in this. I can say hi. God has given me the strength and the ability to be able to say hi to the people who are enemies, who may have hurt me and things like that. But there's nothing in this world that says that I have to sit and explain my life to you. There's nothing in this world that says I have to sit and tell you why I'm so happy. See what it is. God's already put that in me. I know what my happiness is. You want to ask me why I'm so happy? I'm going to tell you, go look up Psalm 30, verse 5. Okay, go look that up and then come back and talk to me. Okay, and these are the things that make it so important. And when I talk to people who are still trying to pull themselves out of these things, or wonder why they're still thinking about or wondering about these things, it's because you have not cleared the space in your head that person occupied. They're part of your life. It happened. You cannot erase it. You cannot go back and redo it. You cannot try to rectify anything that happened. It happened. Deal with it. Exactly. As harsh as that is, you've got to deal with it because it was a part of your life. That's what I mean by accepting responsibility for your part in it. It happened. If we can erase the living, not have the things that we have, and we certainly wouldn't have been dealing with the people that came along in our lives. When we understand that the steps or the plan that God has for our lives and the people that come in and go out is all part of that plan. And if we don't start to look at, okay, what do I take from that? You can go back and reflect on that, and you can look at everything you did wrong, didn't do wrong, did right, didn't do right. But the thing of it is not to remain there. And that's what the thing about being a victim is when you go back and reflect, some people don't know how to come back out of it. They stay there. And so they get caught up in this, oh, he did this to me, and if I could only do this again, and, you know, I still have his number. Maybe if I call him, no. Stop giving him and or her your power, because it's not just a him thing anymore. Stop giving them your power, because when you give them your power, that's when they know they have you. That's why a lot of people don't understand why they see these strong females and want to know why they succumb to this stuff. When an abuser, a narcissist, whoever it is, finds out what your one weak spot is, that is what they will wear down. You could be the strongest female in the world. You could have a multi-billion-dollar company. You could be making money hand over fist in front of the TV, buying all of these clothes. You could be doing all of that. But when your abuser finds out the one thing that makes you weak, they will wear it out. And they will take down the best of people. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just like cancer. Cancer is no respecter of person, place, or thing. Domestic violence is the same way. It is no respecter of person, is no respecter of anything. All of us have weak points in our lives. All of us have ways that we deal with these weak points, but it always comes down to, we have got to learn how to deal with ourselves and stop trying to deal with everybody else's issue.
Exactly. And I like what you said, because so many times we talk about, you know, our low self-esteem or our lack of self-esteem as it relates to domestic violence. You know, and people go, well, I don't have low self-esteem, or I don't lack self-esteem. And you just hit it the nail on the head. We all have something. We all have that weak something in our self-worth, our self-esteem, our self-being. And it's how you're dealing with it. Are you pretending like it doesn't exist? Because then somebody can take it and wear it down and attack you on it. But if you are acknowledging, okay, I'm a little weak right here. You know, I feel some kind of way about my nose, you know, and you are aware of it, and you are like, if you look in the mirror every day, I know you big, but it's going to be okay. You know, I'm still beautiful. Right. Whatever it is you do, they can't attack you with it. You know, it's like the thing we tell our kids. It's, you know, when our kids are younger, we're like, they only messing with you because you sensitive about it. Stop being sensitive about it, and they can't hurt your feelings no more. And it's the exact same thing. We all have something, and it's just, what are you doing to deal with your thing?
Well, we also have to look at the fact that even as adults, with this next generation coming up. We've got to stop. Domestic violence starts kind of early because if you think about it, little girl comes home and says, "Mama, he hit me. Oh, he just liked you. That's why he hit you." We got to stop that. We got to stop that. Liking somebody don't mean you hit them. Point blank.
Right.
We got to stop saying, well, he pitched me or she pitched me. Well, that's just because she liked you. That's a form of abuse. We got to stop giving them that mentality that, I hit you, that means I like you. I pinched you, that means I like you. What's next? I punch you in your nose, that means I love you? No, we got to stop feeding our children that kind of information. And one of my favorite movies, which I own and I watch every now and again, is called Fat Girls, which has Monique in it. And the reason I love this movie is because this movie, Monique has given you the platform to be able to look at yourself and allow yourself to be who you are without trying to become somebody else. And Fat Girls is spelled PHATZ, okay? Fat Girls, okay? Put the Z on it, not the S. And it's just a beautiful movie because it's all about African American women. It's about a doctor who's at a convention who happens to be from Africa, who sees her for her beauty where she can't see herself. And she's spending so much time trying to get the diet pills and the this and the that. She wants to be this Beyonce size. It shows how much the world and society has affected our view of ourselves because we want to be the girl in the magazine. We want to be the actress on the TV. How many people you hear on a daily talking about they want to be Beyonce? Mm-hmm. Beyonce is Beyonce. She ain't trying to be nobody else ever, ever. Okay, we have goals and aspirations. Do not get me wrong. We all have goals and aspirations, and Beyonce may be one of them. Everybody wants to be a part of the Bayhive. But the thing of it is that I've heard her say it. I've heard Taraji P. Henson say it. I've heard Viola Davis say it. I've heard Maya Angelou say it. Notice I'm saying a whole lot of prominent women. I've heard Oprah Winfrey say it. I have heard many prominent women say it. I have heard Tyler Perry, Steve Harvey, plenty of people say it, is that you have got to realize your dream. They've already realized their dream. They're living it. What is your dream? What are you doing to get to where you want to be? Your dream does not always end in a monetary value. And I think that's the thing that, another thing that society has ingrained us with. We're not living our dream if we're not making millions. Okay? We're not living our dream if we're not in we're not in rap videos, we're not on a basketball team, we're not in football, or we're not on the silver screen. We're not making our mark. And, that to me, society needs to dumb down on that. Media needs to dumb down on that. We give too much power to the celebrities because the celebrities, these people will forego their rent, their mortgage to be in the face of someone who doesn't know them, never lived next door to them, could care less what they're eating for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, has never asked them how they're doing, but they are going to kill themselves to get in the presence of these people. It just, to me, and it's not, I'm not putting down any celebrities, go get yours. Do your thing because God has given you that gift and that road. Go do it. My thing is that I want you to turn around and tell people, look, if you can't afford to get to one of my concerts, hold on. It go be on HBO. I'm sure you got HBO, okay? Or hold on. The record will be out shortly. Don't forego who you are trying to chase down somebody who's already living their dream.
Exactly.
Don't do it. Don't do it. We have way too many people who are doing things, and when we talk about it here in Baltimore a lot, we talk about support. People forget how to support because they're too busy chasing the celebrity. You have a next door neighbor that's doing the same thing that you run down to Macy's, Nordstrom, Lord & Taylor, all of these things that you're paying through the nose for, and your next door neighbor's doing the same thing at a lesser price, but you won't give them the time of day. but you're going to run down to this high-end store. Okay. We're giving the same information, but like for me, domestic violence awareness, you don't hear about it on television until it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And then you've got 17 celebrities that are made up to look like they've been in a domestic violence situation. No. I give you people who have been through it, who have been through the pain, the hurt, the physicality of it, the audible of it. They've been through all these things. The people who have confronted them at work, the constant going to court, all of these things. I give you the people who have been through this. To me, that is more important than a celebrity jumping on the TV and giving you a 30-second commercial that says, I know what domestic violence is. No, you support awareness. Tell us your real story. Have you been through it? What was it like when you got hit? What was it like when you were in the ER and this person was standing there and wouldn't let you say anything to the doctor or the nurse? What was it like when you went back home and reached out to your mom or your aunt or your grandma or whoever and said, he's hurting me? And the first words out of their mouth were, what did you do? As opposed to, how can I help? Okay. These are the things that we've got to come into knowledge of. We've got to stop ignoring and going for fame and fortune and dealing with what's right there at grassroots. That's what these things are, grassroots. We have so much that's going on, and many companies, and I'll tell you just this, even in the last 10 months in dealing with getting this program together like I do yearly, big corporations will not look at you if you are not landmarked like Susan G. Komen, like the American Heart Association, like all these companies that will be able to just automatically hand over $1 million check and give them a write-off. So too many companies are about money and not about the cause. And to me, that's bothersome. Even if I got $1 million donation today, I'm going to tell you right now, that $1 million means nothing to me if I cannot help one person get out of their situation. To me, helping one person get out of their situation is worth more than that $1 million. It really is. The $1 million will help me go a whole lot of places. It'll help me get things set up. It'll do a lot. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't cover getting a person out of a harmful situation. It doesn't help me help somebody else feel better about themselves. It doesn't make me look any better just because I got $1 million in my pocket. That's fantastic. But does that end your hurt? Does that end my hurt? Does that stop me from doing what I'm doing? No.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, before we completely wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to say whatever is on your heart to the woman or the man that's watching who has been in the domestic violence situation. They're out. And they're somewhere in between survivor and I know I need to heal, but I haven't healed yet. And they're just kind of in that place. And maybe they teeter-totter back to victim a couple of times. Right. Just give them whatever's on your heart for them in this moment.
Okay, well, my biggest thing that I tell this to everybody. We've all been there. We all know what it means. We all know that safety net that is, I don't have to think about where I'm going. I don't have to think about where it's coming from. This person always gave me everything I needed, but I just can't deal with the hurt anymore. Maya Angelou said it best. You are enough. You are enough. It's always scary to take the first step, but the first step is the best step of the rest of your life. And there are plenty of people. If no one else in your circle will do it, reach out to somebody else. Sometimes you need that unbiased third party who does not know you, who does not know your situation, in order to help you move forward in your situation. Learn how to be you and learn how to love you. Healing takes time. Nobody said forgive one day and I'm on the road to success the next. It takes time. It took me 30 years. But in the last 4 years, I have blossomed, I have bloomed, I have seen things come into my life that I never thought would happen or I only dreamed about. So don't rush yourself, but know that you are enough and that there is somebody out there that will love you for all your quirks, all your idiosyncrasies, all your lumps, bumps, and humps. It does not matter what you have. God made you the way that he made you, and he made you that way for a reason. And that mold was broken as soon as he did it. So please learn to love yourself. Pour into you before you pour into somebody else. That is my word for today.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again, Arlene, so much for joining me, for being a part of Pink Turns Purple. And, you know, we want to wish you continued success with your movement, with your annual event. I hope next year is double, quadruple what it was this year. So thank you so much.
I hope too.
And until next time, those of you who are watching, don't go too far, because another Thrive Her will be in your inbox before you know it. Yes. Bye-bye.